Well, in an earlier video, I talked a little bit about what God is, and I think that anyone who will even use the word God or consider the possibility, uh, well, that people have such strange ideas about things they call God. Uh, uh, I'll define. I tried to do this before, defining some of the things that I perceive about God. And see, I believe that God is the creative, intelligent power of the universe. And He is the intelligence that gives the direction and purpose and motivates the creation in the universe. So uh, that's not all that God is. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do to describe God. Different prophets and great people, they just prayed, what's wonderful thing, could I ask God for? What really would change me, and they asked to see God. You know, if you and you don't see you whatever you don't see me when you're looking at me here with your eyes. You don't see with your eyes. Your eyes aren't seeing me. It's your brain that's seeing me. People's got these all kinds of strange ideas that I have difficulty communicating with people because they're all so weird. With strange ideas. Can you believe that? Okay, so God's the invisible power by which everything's been created. Now, and we talked about different things. Okay, let's get into the beginning of man here. I think uh, we talked about now. Let's just imagine. We'll have a thought experiment. I think I did this in an earlier video already, so I'll just skim over it. If you were God and it was your job, or say you were an Elohim, let's not even imagine being God because we can't imagine God. I mean, He's just too vast and beyond our comprehension. So, if you were an Elohim and you were tasked with the job of, say, taking Mars and making it habitable, because now God is not just a generic uh, creative force. He's an intelligence. God has purpose. God has things He wants done, and God gets done whatever He wants done. Being the thing, the thing, and being that which directs everything. Okay, so if you just say you were with your intelligence that you have right now, and you have access to all the information that you want, and you were tasked with the idea of the purpose. Your job is to say make Mars more Earth-like, full of life. And the way you do it, see, when I was younger and I used to read a lot of science fiction, there were people many decades ago dreaming about how they would terraform Mars. They would develop these self-replicating robots that would go up there, and they would start mining the ground for minerals to produce gases to cause a heavier atmosphere that would catch more light and bring in more heat, which would in turn cause more gas, and then they could grow plants and which would put out more gas and everything, and atmosphere would build up. And so anyway, so the way you would do it, say, if you were going to create an Earth-like planet, is you would create things that would start a process taking it to the end that you want. So, uh, when you imagine, say you're creating these biological robots, all right? You want them to live and die. They do. They fill their function, You know, after you've got enough of whatever it is you want in the atmosphere, you don't need so many of these things that were creating it, right? So you have to make everything mortal. You would make everything mortal so that it would fill its function, and then it would pass away, you know, and something else would take its place, and it would be like evolution, very similar to evolution, except it would be directed. That's all, with intelligence behind it. So this just this seems so reasonable to me that I will, unless I get other evidence, assume that this is how God has actually done things. But like I say, God's so vast, you know, He's working in other dimensions that I have no comprehension of whatsoever, you know. So anyway, this I would assume that that's just exactly what we've got here on the planet Earth. That now God has a purpose. Now we know a little bit, a tiny little bit about God's purpose. And one of the things that we know about God is that He's creating a people for His name, and the idea behind name, you know, the Hebrew word was Shem. I don't know how it's pronounced in Hebrew. You know, I just know words that I look them up in the book. You know, the name. You know, you go back to the Hebrews. What it's pronounced in English as Shem, and the Shem was not just a name, but when somebody would make a monument, that would be a Shem. When a great king would go to war, and he would set up a pillar in the gates, you know, and it would describe all of his feats and victories, and you know all the things that great things he's done, and that would be a Shem. So anyway, when you read the Bible, try to think in generalities. The Bible's not a history book. The Bible is a book to teach you how to fit into God's purpose. And there's a great, the great and pleasant thing about this is, you know, everything it passes away. Everything, you know, it fills its function and then it's gone. You know, and we see that all around us, all the animals, all the plants, everything, it fills its function and it's gone. But there's something that we don't really see much. And that is, you know, that there's, I don't know how, there's things that aren't just programmed, things that aren't just robots. All of your animals, basically, they are just robots. They're genetically programmed to respond to environmental stimuli, and that's all they are. You know, before I retired, that's what I did. Was I worked with robotics, and you know, it seems so reasonable to me, and that's what I see all around me. Biological robots. See, and they're pulling out, just doing that function. Now, with the difference between a biological robot and a sentient being, well, you know, they say you have to be self-aware to be sentient. Here's what I'm calling sentient. Someone with free will. Someone that doesn't have to just respond to their programming. Now, God is creating here on the planet Earth a creation that will manifest His glory. You know, God tells us, as surely as I live, that all the world is going to be filled with the knowledge of my glory. So, and then, you know, when it talks about God's name, you know, God's name is Yahweh, and that means He who will be. Now, in the original Hebrew, it didn't have a time sense. It was the same word was used for I was, I will be, I am now. You know, it was the same word. But the thing is, there were different ideas, and they were set by the context. And the context of where God gives Moses his name is set in the future. It says, this is for a generation. So something to be generated. It's pointing to the future. So God's name is he who will be. Not just I am or I was, but he who will be. Now, and then we see God referred to consistently, or very many times, as Yahweh Elohim. Now, I think we talked about Elohim. I'm pretty sure we talked about Elohim before. Now, the Elohim are mighty ones. God is El. El is power. And I remember in an earlier video I talked about that. Jesus tells us God is a spirit. A spirit is an invisible motivator. You got bad ideas in your head? You got bad spirits. You got evil spirits in your head. That's an evil spirit. You got good spirits in your head? That, that will direct you to motivate you to do good. So what it is any invisible thing that can cause and effect here in the physical reality that we see of the universe, that's a spirit. So and God is spirit. Now I'm not limiting God to things like the wind and gravity and stuff like that, because I think they all manifest God. All these things do, not just one of them or anything, So anyway, the invisible power, God is the invisible power by which all things are made, and God's purpose with man is to create. Well, did I go into Yahweh Elohim? Yahweh, he who will be Elohim, is mighty ones. El is might or power, and the O-M is a plural. Ones, mighty ones. So these mighty ones, God is called in the Bible Yahweh Elohim, he who will be mighty ones. And we're told that God's calling out of people for his name. So when we put I didn't want to jump all over the Bible. I wanted to start out simple right in the very beginning. So anyway, but the thing is, if you have an idea what we're talking about, maybe this will work better. So we have the opportunity. We are biological robots. We respond to the environmental stimuli just like all the biological robots do. When I was working in the auto plant with my robots, a certain color car, we would have cameras that could detect the color. This is this color car, we do this to it. Or if it's a certain, they would build them different for different things, and sometimes they would put a little all kinds of indicators that we would pick up with our sensors, say do this to this one particular car, and they would do it. So that's the environmental stimuli telling the robot what to do. The robot didn't think, it did what it was told. Now, if that robot could think, then it could be sentient. So God's calling out of people for his name to glorify him, and we have the opportunity to be more than a robot. And that is what the Bible is about. It's not about the salvation of man. It's about the glory of God and how we can glorify God and how we can become a part of that. So I've already used up probably more than half of the time I wanted to put, and I haven't even got to the subject I wanted to talk about yet. So anyway, now I think I've got enough background where I can start talking about when the Elohim. Now every time when you're reading any English version of the Bible, I think, and they all use God all through here. At the beginning here of Genesis, it says God, and this is Elohim. This is a plural word. This is talking about intelligent beings that manifest the power of God. See, this is God manifestation in the Elohim. God is doing it, but these intelligent beings are doing God's will because, oh well, I don't know if I should get into that yet. That's another one. Because anyway, so anyway, let's see. God said, let us make man in our, no, and it says God in here. The Elohim said, they're talking to each other. These intelligent beings. If you don't believe in aliens, you can't possibly believe in the Bible. If you're so arrogant that you think that mankind is the center of the universe, you may as well forget it. I mean, I don't know. So anyway, and that's where almost all your scientists and your scholars and all they're too arrogant. They're brain dead. Uh-oh, I've got company. I'll have to start this back up again later.